seated already, you need to sign up for the prayer band that you'll be a part of on Monday chapel times, if you haven't already. And if you want to be part of a worship team, you need to sign up for that as well and take an information sheet and get that back to Mrs. Grant. So in case anyone slipped in and I didn't catch you, that's what we're doing right here. And then you also need to get one of these papers from me for Practical Christian Service. I'm going to go over that in chapel this morning. So if you're sitting down and you don't have one of these, come grab one. Is that, as you look around, we have everybody. Whoops. We got one here. Emily? Have you signed up for a prayer yet? Okay, can you do that? Okay, good morning. This is an information chapel. It's not a preaching chapel. So I'm going to give you some information and then I'm going to actually let you go early. Isn't that a nice treat in your day? All right. Listen, I'll make up for it. I'm speaking in chapel twice next week and I'm going to go long. So we're going to make up for it, all right? First things first. Each Monday, unless you're told otherwise because of a guest speaker coming that we're accommodating on a Monday, each Monday during chapel will be what we call prayer bands. There's 3 groups that Mr. Grant talked about the other day: North American group, South American group, and Africa and Asia, Europe group. And where those groups will meet, I don't know if he has mentioned that yet, but I'll leave that for him to determine. And but that's a mandatory time. That's not, it's kind of like coming to chapel. It's not come to chapel if you feel like it. This is what we do as part of our day. So I think at this point you all should be signed up, right? And if I missed anybody, make sure on your way out you do sign up. For our music, we haven't had music in chapels yet, and except for Weekend of Welcome, but we will, beginning, I think in a day or two, we'll be having a song at the beginning of each chapel. We'll be having music in our Thursday night prayer meetings, music in our Sunday services. And if you want to be a part of helping to provide music, whether solo or instrumental, part of a group, you need to be on that list. Mrs. Grant, Mr. Grant's wife, she directs our music ministry, and she needs to know who you are. And she needs to have a conversation, maybe a tryout with you if she doesn't know you. And we leave all of that in her capable hands, but she needs to know who you are. So there's a sign-up sheet for that. Please make sure that you do that. This is Thursday. She wants that sheet by tomorrow. It would be good if we could just get that done for her today. All right. Any questions about those 2 things? All right. Here's the third thing. You just received a sheet for Practical Christian Service. Over the history of NBBI, we have enjoyed sending our students out to local churches, an average of 1 afternoon or evening a week, to help in their children's ministry programs like Awana, Kids Club, their teen youth groups, sometimes senior citizen homes in our area. And it's generally a very positive experience. It lets you get out into our community churches, which I think is really important, not only for you while you're here, but for them to get to know a little bit about us. The churches that we work with are churches that have contacted me as the director of Practical Christian Service, and they've asked specifically, can we have some of your students this year? Some of them have asked for you by name, and because they already know you, you've worked with them in the past maybe, and some of them, they've just asked, can you give us some students? And what I get to do is I get to put teams together. Generally, I'm putting together a team of 3, maybe 4 students who will go out to that particular church at a scheduled time each week while you're here on campus. Of course, if you're home on break, then you're not. And we're just coming alongside the leadership there. Some of the ministries, you'll be asked to be a helper, like with games, teaching a Bible lesson, a missionary story. Some of you have had experience that way. For some ministries, you'll have a lot of involvement. In other words, you'll have to prepare a lesson. For some of the ministries, you won't have that level of involvement. They've already got that part looked after. They just need extra hands on deck to keep the kids from jumping out the second-story window, right? And so it varies from ministry to ministry. No two are exactly the same. So your experience might be different from one of your friends' experiences, and that's just the nature of ministry. Having said that, there's some information from you that I need to put together the best teams. The first bit of information I need is your name. Without that, this paper is not very useful to me. So put your name on that, and then you'll see 3 categories of ministry: children, teens, or senior citizens. I'd like you to tell me which one of those would be your first preference by putting the number 1 next to it. Which one would be your second preference? Which one would be your third preference as you think about that? All right, I can't guarantee that you'll get your first preference. If every one of you put down children and none of you put down teens, then that might be hard to accommodate, right? I can't guarantee that first, but I will do my best. And hopefully we can at least get your second, and on some occasions I may have to go to the third, but it won't be without having a conversation with you first to see if you're agreeable to that. Generally speaking, I will meet with you and talk to you about that team and let you have that final decision, okay? This is not a forced thing, but it is a required thing. And so if I have you in this ministry and you might say, you know what, I just don't think that's going to be the right fit, then we'll have that conversation and I'll see what we can do, okay? But there'll be some give and take maybe. The next thing I need to know, and you can do this right now if you have a pen, I need to know if you've been vaccinated against COVID-19. Here's why I need to know that. Not that I care one way or the other, but there may be some ministries, for instance, senior homes, where that's actually a requirement for anyone from the community coming in. And last thing I want to do is put you into something that it turns out you're not eligible. Last year we had some churches that contacted me and said, listen, at this stage, we're only asking vaccinated ones to be a part of this ministry. This is a different year. It might look very differently, but I just want to be able to know ahead of time as I talk with churches, and that becomes an issue. Hopefully it won't be, but if there is on a particular church, I'll just know not to place you on that team. Okay, that's the only reason I'm asking for that information. Next, I need to know if you have any musical ability. There might be a youth group that's looking for a guitar player as part of their youth. There might be a nursing home that's looking for someone who can play keyboard. And so that's helpful to me that way. And that doesn't interfere with anything Mrs. Grant is doing with worship teams. Before I set the final teams, I'll be having conversations with the deans and with Mrs. Grant to make sure I'm not taking you out of an area that they've already placed you into for something else. For instance, if you're needed for, let's say, Sunday night worship, I'm probably not going to put you in a Sunday night youth group, right? Make sense? So that's where some of this information helps me to get a handle. If I see a lot of musical ability there, I'll be sure to make sure that I touch base with Mrs. Grant. If you have any other previous ministry experience, youth group at your home church, if you've worked in Awana clubs, that's very helpful to know because we have some churches that do Awana. If you've not worked in Awana, I might put you in another children's ministry, but if you have worked in Awana specifically, I might attach you to that because that just makes sense, right, with the whole learning curve. If you have a car that's here on campus, and it's registered and insured, and you're able to drive to your youth or children's ministry and take the rest of your team with you, another 2 or 3 people at the most, if you're willing to do that, the school will reimburse your mileage. Okay, you'll fill out a form and put it in Mr. Robbins' box. He's our business manager, and he'll issue you a check to reimburse you so many cents per kilometer. If you're willing to do that, you're willing to use your vehicle and be reimbursed, I need you to circle yes. That's a huge part of how I put the teams together, because as you can imagine, each team needs a way to get there, right? And so I've got to make sure I can facilitate that as best as I can. So that would be very helpful for me to know. If you have any other thoughts on what kind of a ministry you'd like to be a part of, there's a space there to fill that in, and that just gives me a little bit of information. If you have a preference as to where you would like to go, I know some of you have been contacted personally already by some of our local churches that know you, and they've said to you, hey, we'd really like to have you with our youth or our kids, then make sure you write that on the form. You might think I remember if you've talked with me, but make sure it's in written so that as I'm filling out the teams, I have that information. I'll do my best to accommodate that, but I can't promise, okay? What I try to do is put upper class with freshmen on each of the teams so that there's a mixture. Because of COVID, we've actually been a few years before since we've had a full PCS. So there's only some of you in the upper class that had any PCS experience last year. Some of you went out to youth groups, but even that was short term because of COVID again in our community. So hopefully, Lord willing, this year will be full speed ahead. Okay, so a little bit of a learning curve, but I can assure you, every person that I've spoken to that wants you to come and help them are excited by the idea of you coming. So you're going to be received very warmly, I'm sure. Now, I have a couple of ministries that take place on a Sunday evening, a couple of teen youth groups. On Sunday evenings, generally, we're here and we're having our campus church with the seniors and juniors preaching, and you guys are providing music and testimony, and some folks just really enjoy that and they want to be a steady part of that all year. There may be some of you that are willing to not be here, but to go out to help with a youth group with teens. And if that's you and you're willing to go on a Sunday night, let me know that as well. Because the last thing I want to do is put you on that team if you would rather not. Okay? If I don't get enough people signing up for the Sunday night, I may talk to some of you individually and we'll have a conversation to see what your willingness might be. And the second one there at the bottom is Friday evening as well. I've got one youth group of teens that meets on Friday nights. For some of you on campus, Friday nights would be just a great time to go out and work with teens. For some of you, you might be thinking, well, I'd like to go home on weekends. I'm close enough that I might want to do that, or I'd rather have my weekends completely free once I get done with lunch on Friday. And so that's not for you, obviously, right? I don't want someone to sign up for a Sunday or a Friday who's looking for a lot of weekends off, okay? I want someone who's not looking for a lot of weekends off so that it fits with the church, okay? So think about who you are, what you've done already, camps, church ministry. Think about where you feel your best fit might be for this year. It might change next year, but give that some thought, fill this out, and then get it into my hands or into my mailbox at the top of the stairs. And if you could do that in the next day or two, that would be wonderful. Generally, we don't start practicals until we're done with softball. So you won't find yourself with a softball game, but your youth group is that same night. That's not going to happen. We're going to get through softball first, and then we'll share you with the churches, okay? So there's no conflict there. All right. Anyone have a question before I move off of this? Yeah, Marty?
Will there be ministries across the border?
Right now, I don't have ministries across the border on a weekly basis, but we may have some traveling teams that go across, like a music team. And once we get to that place where we're establishing that, it'll be with the understanding that it will need to be people that have a passport and are vaccinated, if they're going to be part of that group, if that group is planning on going across the border. So that's a good question. We don't have the answers yet. Having said that, If, let's say, you get selected for a traveling music team, then I would take you off of one of these ministries, because you're going to have enough time practicing and traveling on weekends once we get going with that, so you wouldn't be on the traveling music team and have to do a youth group at the same time. So I would take from my list of students and give them over to Mrs. Grant's needs that way, okay? All right, and I'm playing with the idea as well of putting together a drama team that travels. In the past, we've done that. It's been called Manifest. Some of you have seen Manifest maybe at a retreat here or otherwise. And that will be cross-border, and it will require vaccination and passport. But that's a team that I hand-pick. And if I sense that we have the right people for that, I will be approaching you, okay? If you have an interest, you can certainly approach me. But I'll be approaching you on that as well. All right, any other good questions? Good. Now I have 2 ministry opportunities apart from this that have been brought to my attention. And let me talk to you about the first one. Devon Park Baptist Church in Fredericton, which is about an hour and 10-15 minutes from here, is doing their missions conference the last weekend of October. So Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night, beginning on October 28th, 29th, and 30th. They are looking for some young ladies. They've not asked me for guys, but they're looking for some young ladies that would be willing to put together a children's program. So while the adults are in their missions meeting, you would be directing a children's program for them in their children's space. So that would be putting together a program. Some of you may have some experience doing that, maybe with 5-day clubs, good news clubs, things like that. And you might think, you know, I could do that for 3 nights. Here's what they're asking. Either one, and you'll have to come to me and let me know if that's an area of interest. One, you could travel down each of the evenings. The meeting begins at 6 o'clock at night. It's about an hour plus travel. And they would pay your mileage to go back and forth, so your gas is looked after. Or let's say you had a group of, let's say 3 or 4 of you, and you wanted to take a weekend off in Fredericton. They would try to find housing for you, and then you would have your day free to be in Fredericton, and then come out to the church for the meetings at night, 6 o'clock at night. Okay, so either travel back and forth, or they'll house you for the weekend, and that's for girls. And I'm looking for 3 to 4 girls. Yeah.
It doesn't matter because it's for girls.
Yeah, it's for girls. Okay? So if you're interested in that, and you're talking with some friends who are thinking, yeah, we could do that as a team, come see me, because I need to give them an answer, either yes, we can do this, or no, we don't have anyone available. That's the last weekend in October. It doesn't coincide with our ladies thing that's going on. That's earlier. So if that's you, please come see me, okay? Here's the second opportunity. It's a little bit further away. We have an older man who is a grad of the school who is doing some church planting ministry in Nova Scotia. And he would love to see, and this is in the Bridgewater, Nova Scotia area, those of you that know Nova Scotia. I'm going to guess it's about an 8-hour drive. Does that sound right, Nova Scotians? And so down in Bridgewater, they're looking for a group of students, could be guys and gals, who would come down Friday after classes on the weekend of October 22nd and 23rd. You would go down to Nova Scotia. You'd provide your own vehicle to do that. You would arrive late at night on Friday. Saturday, you would be involved in all sorts of different ministries, doing some visitation, doing a coffee house in the evening where some of the local church people would provide some music and things, and then you guys would provide some music as well, maybe by guitar, keyboard, testimonies. Not a coffee house like we do here on our weekend of welcome. They're not looking for funny little skits, okay? They're looking for a way to showcase who Christ is to the community that will be invited in. So some visitation in the morning or afternoon, the coffee house in the evening, and then on Sunday morning, you would be providing someone that would preach. So we need a guide to go that's able to share a message, maybe some special music, and maybe if you had the ability, a kids program, like junior church kind of a thing. And you would be doing this to give that local church just a bit of a shot in the arm, a bit of encouragement, and let the community see a little bit about what NBBI does. So it's kind of a twofold thing. I've been in conversation with this gentleman since the beginning of last year. We were going to do this last year, but COVID prevented us from doing it. I think it would be a fantastic opportunity for a few of you who have a sense of adventure, a sense of willingness to go and to be what's needed from you. They'll feed you. Matter of fact, the words in his letter are this: they will be well fed. And it's underlined with two exclamation points. So before you come home on Sunday afternoon, you will be well fed. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I imagine it's going to be good. All right, so if that's you, you can preach, you can pray, you have a friend with a guitar, 3 of you can sing, a couple of you can do a kids program. If that's, and you don't mind meeting new people and just being a shot in the arm of encouragement to an older guy that's trying to head up this ministry, if that's you and you want that kind of a challenge, come see me. That'll be the weekend of October 22nd and 23rd. All right? Any other details you want from me, come chat with me. That's all I have. Let me pray. Father, thank you for the many opportunities that have been granted to us as a school to share our students with others, that we might not just influence our own students here, but that they might go out and influence the lives of others. And I pray your very best upon each one of our students. I pray, Lord, that for all of their responsibilities this year, you will equip them through the gifting of your Spirit. You will lead them, that you'll lead me as I place them onto the appropriate teams. Father, we pray that folks would be encouraged through our various ministries, and most of all, that you would receive glory, because we do this because of you. Because you're the one who enables us and calls us, equips us in so many ways. And so we do this just to say thank you for what it is that you're doing in our hearts and lives, even this day. And Lord, for these 2 specific ministries in Fredericton and Nova Scotia, I pray that you would be pleased to raise up a godly team for each one of those ministries, that we might be an encouragement to them. In Christ's name, amen. Okay. If you need me, you know where to find me. My office is right through this door and just to your right, or you can catch me after class. Is there anyone here who did not get one of these? All right, so get these filled out as soon as you can and get it back into my hands. You guys are dismissed. Look at that, 7 minutes early. What are you going to do with all that time? All right.